from the Defense Press Operations in the Office of the Assistant to the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs. We are here today to hear what Dr. Jon Kosloski, the new director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, has to say about AARO's activities and the release today of the unclassified version of their annual report on unidentified anomalous phenomena as required by statute. In a moment, I'll turn it over to Dr. Kosloski to provide opening remarks. Then we will go to Q&A. I will be moderating and calling on you because Dr. Kosloski, if this is his first time with you all, we would appreciate it if you would identify yourself by name and outlet when you ask your question. Please keep it to one question and one follow-up. And if we have more time, then I will circle back. We have about 30 minutes. All right? Dr. Kosloski.
Thanks, Jim. Good morning. I'm Dr. Jon Kosloski, Director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO. It's a pleasure to be here today to introduce myself and to provide an update of the work of our office. As you know, I assumed the AARO directorship in August, following more than 2 decades at the National Security Agency, where I did advanced research in the areas of optics, computing, and cryptomathematics. By nature, I'm drawn to tough scientific problems, which is what brought me to AARO and the UAP mission. Unidentified objects in any domain pose potential threats to safety and security. Reports of unidentified anomalous phenomenon, particularly near national security sites, must be treated seriously and investigated with scientific rigor by the U.S. government. Since becoming director, I've been extremely pleased by AARO's team and the framework they've established for rigorous analysis of UAP reports. AARO has taken meaningful steps to improve data collection and retention, bolster sensor development, effectively triage UAP reports, and reduce the stigma of reporting a UAP event. In the coming year, AARO will prioritize building partnerships, promoting increased transparency, and scaling up the work of the office. This week, the department delivered its fiscal year 2024 consolidated annual report on UAP and had the opportunity to brief congressional staff on the report's findings. As of today, over 1,600 UAP reports, 757 of which, AARO has received over 1,600 UAP reports, over 757 of which came to AARO during the period covered by the report. AARO has successfully resolved hundreds of cases in its holdings to commonplace objects such as balloons, birds, drones, satellites, and aircraft. Meanwhile, over 900 reports lack sufficient data for scientific data for analysis and are retained in our active archive. These cases may be reopened and resolved should additional information emerge to support analysis. I want to emphasize that although only a very small percentage of reports to AARO are potentially anomalous, these are the cases that require significant time, resources, and a focused scientific inquiry by AARO and its partners. It is also important to underscore that to date, AARO has discovered no verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial beings, activity, or technology. None of the cases resolved by AARO have pointed to advanced capabilities or breakthrough technologies. It is also worth noting that AARO continues to see a geographic bias of UAP reports near U.S. military assets and sensors. However, this bias has been mitigated somewhat by an increase in commercial pilot reporting in the continental United States. AARO is working closely with the services to implement existing reporting guidance while expanding UAP reporting to more of the interagency. Meanwhile, AARO continues to review the U.S. historical record relating to UAP and will release a second volume of its congressionally directed historical record report. We welcome any former or current government civilian contractor or military service member with relevant information to reach out to us at www.aaro.mil. For every UAP report, operational or historical, AARO will follow the science and data wherever they lead. And we are committed to sharing as much information as possible at the unclassified level to inform the public of our activities and findings. With that, I'll take your questions.
Brandy?
Thanks. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm Brandy Vincent with Defense Scoop. One question on the report and then a follow-up. It noted that the next step for Gremlin, the Gremlin capability, is conducting a 90-day pattern of life collection at a national security site. Where is that going to be? How did you pick that location? And what ultimately are you guys trying to accomplish with that?
So it's currently deployed. We'd rather not say exactly where it is because we want it to be an unbiased test and don't want to invite folks to come and do flyovers and test against the system. We chose that specific location because of the environment. We expect there to be a lot of variety in the types of things that we're going to see, and there have been UAP reports in that general area. And we're trying to build a baseline. So right now we have this geographic bias where we are getting reports near the national security sites, but we also have a bias from pilots and other security personnel. So we want to have a better understanding of what normal looks like near those national security sites. And then eventually we'll be expanding our baseline investigations to other areas in the US to look at what normal looks like away from national security sites.
Cool. And then after the hearing on the Hill yesterday, lawmakers were saying that they are really keen to meet in a skiff with AARO officials, other DoD officials, whistleblowers, and members of Congress. Is that something you've been approached about, have done, or are open to doing?
So we're absolutely open to meeting with everybody. We've been meeting with a variety of folks, from whistleblowers through staffers, and we encourage anybody with direct information to come to us, go to our secure reporting mechanism on the website, and when we get that, we'll reach out to them, schedule a meeting in the SCIF, and Congress has enabled us to receive all sensitive information regardless of classification or NDAs they may have signed, and we receive that information and we follow up on every tip that they provide us.
Thank you.
Yep.
Two questions. One, I was wondering if you could talk about whether any analysis or data of reports you have received has led you to the foreign adversary conclusion, specifically the UAS's 18 reports of UAS's spotted near nuclear facilities. And then I was wondering if you could just talk about the effort to increase engagement with foreign partners for a better, a broader array of sensors, data analysis information.
Sure. So firstly, no, we have not been able to correlate any UAP activity to adversarial collection activities or advanced technologies. I also want to make it clear that UAP covers a lot of potential activity. By its very nature, the definition is in the name, right? So it's unidentified and it's anomalous. Once we know that it's a UAV or a UAS of some nature, we then hand that responsibility off to one of our partners. So Langley being a great example, it was known to be UAV activity, so we were there in a supporting role, but it was not our responsibility to address that. So those investigations are conducted by somebody else, and we're focusing on the truly anomalous where we don't understand the activity. And then for the foreign engagement, we're working on increasing our foreign engagement. We recognize that UAP is not just going to be a domestic issue. The office has focused primarily on US government, and we're going to be growing to public reporting soon in 2025, and we're going to be growing our international partnerships hopefully also in 2025. So starting with the group that we have the most familiarity with, and then growing that.
Are there any specific countries you can name in terms of who you aim to work with?
We are going to be starting with the traditional allies of the DoD and the IC, and we'll leave it at that for now until we have those partnerships well established, and then we'll probably come out with more information. Yeah.
Nick?
Nick Schifrin, PBS NewsHour. Thanks very much for doing this. This may be basic and silly, but I just want to read you a quotation from the hearing yesterday and have you respond to it. This is Luis Elizondo, former DoD official. Let me be clear, UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. The U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as are some of our adversaries. Can you just give us a sense of your perspective on that quotation.
Break that down. So there's a lot in that quotation. Firstly, absolutely agree UAP are real. We, as I said, we've received 1,600 cases. A large number of those are unresolved, which means we don't know exactly what they are. Until we know what they are or who they belong to, we can't attribute intent and understand exactly what the purpose of that phenomenon is. So we're not comfortable, we, AARO, not comfortable saying at this time whether or not the UAP are there to collect information or not. In regards to whether or not AARO, US government, or any other government has UAP, we have not found any evidence of that at this time.
But the bottom line conclusion remains what you said at the top. There's no verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial activity.
We have not found any, no. There are definitely anomalies. We have not been able to draw the link to extraterrestrial.
Bill?
Just to follow up on that, you know, a lot of people read that, saw that hearing. You know, when you said there was no breakthrough technologies, I mean, the person seems to be suggesting that, you know, at a minimum, these are breakthrough technologies. What leads you to assume that the ones that the UAP cases that you can't resolve are not potentially breakthrough technologies? Or is it that you just haven't been able to conclusively decide either way?
That's exactly right. So we don't fully understand the phenomenon enough to say whether or not it's a breakthrough technology or not. So it's a very small percentage of our overall cases that after the initial analysis still have the anomalous characteristics that one could attribute breakthrough technologies to. It's less than 3.5% of our cases. And we're still studying those with our IC and S&T partners, trying to understand what technologies could be used to provide those characteristics. But we don't understand them well enough to say whether it's a breakthrough technology, a misunderstanding of the sensor performance, or something else.
I mean, a skeptic might say that, you know, if you just because you can't explain it isn't a reason to assume that it's not a breakthrough technology. Or, I mean, by definition, a breakthrough technology would be something that you don't have. If you don't have it, you can't explain, right?
Agreed, 100%. So we're not ruling it out. We're open to that as an explanation for it, but we're just not attributing breakthrough technology as the explanation to it. An open mind works both ways. So if we don't understand what it is, we can't say that it is or is not breakthrough technology. So we're just trying to keep an open mind.
It's not a catch-22.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We accept that the explanation could be a misunderstanding of ours in interpreting the data, or it could be a breakthrough technology. Until we understand, we don't know.
Thank you, Radros, for the help. Have you found anything that might be a breakthrough technology? I know you're saying you don't know if there are breakthroughs yet, but something that might be a breakthrough technology near the military sites, some of those sightings you've seen near the military sites, have you found anything that might be that, or have they all just been drones and UAS?
Definitely not all just drones and UAS. So we have several particularly interesting cases. We're working on, within the office, working with our partners to downgrade several of those cases so we can talk about them publicly. But there are interesting cases that my physics and engineering background and time in the IC, I do not understand. And I don't know anybody else who understands them either.
But those near military sites and facilities?
Until we get the information approved for release, I'd rather not say where those sightings were, but definitely interesting sightings.
Hi, Louis Martinez with ABC News. Thank you for doing this and welcome.
Thank you for coming.
Yes. I'd like to follow up on the earlier question about incidents you cannot explain
Mhm.
based on your broad experience. A couple of follow-ups on that, please. Were these all within the last year? Were these all at the same location? Were you looking at video evidence, or what are the metrics that you're looking at that you cannot explain?
Great question. So of the cases that I'm thinking of, there's a variety of them. The cases that are top of my mind are spread out over the last year and a half. I'm sure that there's some other anomalous ones a little further back, but the ones that I'm particularly most interested in, last year and a half, there is some video footage for a few of the cases, not all of the cases. So it's not just eyewitnesses, but in each of the cases I'm particularly interested in, there were multiple eyewitnesses and there is additional data to go with them. It remains to be seen whether or not that additional data is going to be sufficient for us to either resolve the case, understand whether it's a UAV, bird, or balloon, or say something substantive about the nature of the unknown phenomenon. So we're still trying to understand whether or not there's more data available, because we get the data that comes in from the witnesses, but we also go through a bunch of other sources. Whether or not we can enrich the data that was brought to us and then build a better case. Still
And
think-
what are some of the characteristics, or is there a trend among these things? And are they extended period incidents, or are they very, very quick?
In each of these cases, they were not extended. The cases that I'm thinking of, there was no commonality across the different cases, different morphologies, so orbs, cylinders, triangles. In one of the cases, it has been happening over an extended period of time, and it is possible that there's multiple things happening. There could be some UAV activity in the environment that's getting confused or conflated with the UAP activity, so we're trying to tease that out right now.
And just to clarify, earlier you said Langley was UAVs. The Langley incidents would not be among what you described?
Correct. Correct.
Constantine?
Thanks. Constantine Torben with military.com. So one of the sort of key criticisms, I think, around this issue from the hearing yesterday was government transparency, lack of government transparency. I mean, can you sort of speak to that critique and whether you feel that AARO is being overly secretive, if you guys are working on being more transparent, sort of address this criticism from the Hill that you guys are emblematic of a government that overly classifies everything? And
Yeah, it's an understandable concern, and I can make a comment. My wife would like me to share more about the UAP incidents too, but all right. I guess it's on the record now. So the fundamental issue is that AARO receives cases from our partners, and in most cases to date, because we've been working through the services, those partners are providing data that is gathered from sensitive platforms, and we need to make sure that we're protecting the sensitive sources methods, not introducing vulnerabilities to their operations. So even though that there's nothing inherently classified about the existence of a UAP, we have to protect that information. When AARO receives those interesting cases, the cases that we're just briefly talking about, we try to identify if the UAP information can be isolated from the sensitive, usually it's metadata that identifies characteristics of the platform. And we work to downgrade that material as much as we can. But we can't do it unilaterally. It has to be in partnership with the folks that brought that information. That is a very deliberate process, as you can imagine, to make sure that we're not releasing sensitive information. So we have taken significant steps to speed that up. We've hired a number of declassification experts. We're going to be hosting a declassification workshop so we can make sure we're implementing best practices from across the DoD and the IC. All of that takes more time than I think the public would like for it to take, but AARO is working on it. We recognize that the types of cases that I was just talking about are, from my perspective, true anomalies, and we're going to need significant scientific rigor to address those. And yes, the US government has a lot of nice scientists, a little bias there, but we're going to need the help of academia and the public to address some of these. So we need to build that more transparent partnership.
And just to follow up, sort of on the flip side, is there any, as you look at cases to release, for example, you talked about how at least one of the interesting ones is sort of ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a world where you hold back release out of fear of drawing more reports, sort of drawing attention to a location and getting copycats or, what have you, sort of muddying the data?
Yeah, so that concern has been raised to us because bad data in gets bad analysis out. However, no data in gets no analysis out. And so being an NSA guy, I'm a firm believer in big data is going to lead to better conclusions. And I would rather have to filter out some of those copycat cases, but have more substantive data. If we're looking for a needle in a haystack, I'd rather have multiple haystacks to go digging through rather than just one.
Thank you.
Brandon?
Just one quick follow-up. I'm sorry if I've missed it before, but what is AARO or your definition for breakthrough technology?
So Lots of people, lots of organizations have different definitions, and the working definition that we've been using informally inside of our office, and we are working on more formal definitions for the different domains, for space, the air domain, and the undersea domain. But the general definition is beyond state-of-the-art today and beyond where we think that we could get in the next couple of years. So we keep an eye on the capabilities of ourselves, our partners, and everyone else at the academic and the very technical level. And then if it's beyond that, then we would say that's breakthrough technology.
Bill?
Just a quick follow-up on your answer to Constantine. So if you need to, I mean, I guess a lot of Americans have this view of the government as kind of all-knowing and being able to ascertain, you know, everything. Particularly when I think of NSA and other agencies.
Only.
And so I guess if you could help us explain to readers, you know, what is it about these phenomena that you know, reach the limits of government, of the understanding of the professionals in the government, and why it would be necessary to bring in academics? That'd be helpful for us.
Great question. So following up Brandy's question, if it's a breakthrough technology, by its very nature, we don't know how it would be done, right? If we knew how to do it, we'd be doing it already and it wouldn't be a breakthrough technology. And so usually those breakthroughs are coming from the academics. Historically, either in science or engineering, the breakthroughs come from academia, and then they go into industry, and then they come into government. Government's employing a lot of scientists like myself and others who understand a fair amount about the science, but being able to extend that to something that we could not have imagined when we were in school or when we were in training is a very difficult process. And so we're going to have to pull in those folks that they spend all day, every day, just thinking of what is the next possible thing that you could do if you were just to tweak the equations a little bit this way or change the material a little bit that way. And the government, because of our day jobs, we don't get to spend all day, every day doing that as much as I would like to.
Nick?
Just two small clarifications. So the what you called interesting cases in the beginning, and then Louis asked you more specific, spread out over the last year and a half. Just to be clear, those are cases that we don't know about, right? Meaning we have not read about these cases that you're speaking about. Correct.
Correct.
You said to Louis, one of the cases has been happening over an extended period of time. I think Constantine said ongoing. Just to be clear, that is ongoing, or was it just happening over an extended period of time? And you're not saying whether it's
Extended
ongoing.
period of time, it may be ongoing, but we don't know if the current activity is just drone activity in the environment. And so we're trying to follow up on that. We had put more energy into it earlier on, something cleared up, and now we're checking on it.
Got it. Thanks.
Ellie, CBS, just follow up on the interesting cases. Are the interesting cases that you're talking about the 21 cases that merit further analysis, or are they part of the active archive?
They're part of the 21,
Okay.
yeah, that merit. So the active archive, just so that we're clear, those are cases where we don't have enough scientific data to continue the analysis. We're always looking for more. And then when we do, we'll pull those into the merit more analysis.
Louis?
Last year's report in the timeframe had 281 new, I believe, incidents. Now you have 485. What do we owe this really large increase to?
So the new incidents, I think to be clear, this
Well, because
is
I think in
757.
your report here, you talk about a total of 757, you know, in the period of the reporting period,
Yep.
of which 485 were from this year, and then the remainder were from
Oh,
previous.
yes.
But then, in last year's report, which was from, and I'm looking at my notes here.
Why the ramp up in reporting?
Yeah, I mean, an additional 200, I mean, in the
Yes.
same reporting period.
Engagement.
Yes.
So we have the gen admin out, we're engaged with the services, we're engaging more with the services, helping them understand what qualifies as a UAP, how to report it, and we're getting more reports of the anomalous activity. It's not that we don't believe that there's necessarily more anomalous activity, it's just we're getting greater reporting. And we expect, as we continue that engagement with the services, but also across the IC and the rest of the government, to the question earlier, we're going to see that reporting go up as well. We're going to follow that with education campaigns so that, for example, the FAA is providing us reports now as well, so we're getting reports from the pilots. Some of the reports from the pilots are Starlink flares. So light glinting off of satellites at just the right time of the evening. It looks interesting and potentially anomalous. But we can model that, we can show pilots what that anomaly looks like so that that doesn't get reported to us necessarily. So we're going to follow up the engagement campaigns with education campaigns so that as we're increasing the number of accounts that come to us, we're not just getting more of the noise and trying to keep it focused on the interesting.
Just a very quick question on the active archive. Do you have an instance or instances where you have gotten more information for an event in the active archive and have pulled it out, or is that?
Thank you for asking. We do, yes. Yes, we do. So it actually was the instance that I'm most familiar with was a Starlink instance. So we had several folks over the period, I think it was multiple months, were seeing interesting activity in the sky. And we found that because we're continuously looking back at that active archive and looking for correlations across those incidents, but also new incidents coming in, we found some of those correlations in time, the direction that they were looking, and the location, and we were able to assess that they were all, in those cases, looking at Starlink flares. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
How many people work in your office?
We have several dozen folks working in the office, but the power of the office isn't the number of people who work in it, it's our partnerships across the IC and the DoD, and hopefully in the near future, academia as well.
I mean, in the historical report from earlier this year, there was mention that in the 1950s and 60s, as commercial pilots started flying, they saw reflections as well off of what were like U-2 aircraft at that time. So this new Starlink seems very reminiscent of that.
Yeah,
That's
very reminiscent.
So you're seeing an uptick in that might be, again, a historical parallel, right?
Yes, yep, and we do see some trends in the morphologies that are reported. So for a while, we're seeing a lot more balloons, and then pilots started understanding what some of the space trash looked like. And now we're seeing as the mega satellite constellations are increasing, Starlink, and there's others that are going up, we're seeing an increase in those lights in the sky that look very unusual as those satellites are deploying. And we expect that that trend will also go down eventually.
Ellie?
I have to ask a broadcast-specific question, but do you anticipate releasing any video related to any of the cases that were ruled out or that are still unexplained?
So we have some resolved cases that are of public interest that have been talked about publicly that we'll be releasing on the 19th. I think those are going to come with videos. Yep. And then as we downgrade information, the hope is that we will be able to release as much of that content as we can to the public so that we can get help in resolving it. Yeah.
Motion.
Thanks for doing this. Moshe Gaines with NBC. You said earlier that there wasn't evidence that UAP activity was linked to foreign adversaries. But I'm wondering, have you seen any kind of suggestion that foreign adversaries have been trying to capitalize off of this with disinformation or anything else?
We have not, but I am concerned that somebody could use the potential stigma and take advantage of that. If there is a stigma associated with reporting UAP, then that's an opportunity for the adversary to maybe conduct collection operations and not have folks report on it, but we haven't seen evidence of that yet.
All right,